Alright, hello guys, it's your boy Mr. Tibbs coming to you live from the goddamn motherfucking internet. Coming to you live with some Cossacks 3 gameplay. Now obviously I want to give a big shout out to our boy Raffle for hooking me up with a wonderful copy of Cossacks 3. Allowing me to, produce this wonderful video for you guys. Now, Cossacks 3, best way I could say to describe it would be that it is a combination between Age of Empires and I would also say Total War, actually. Now, you may be asking why. Well, it's kind of got the economy base of the Age of Empires games, but it also has the, its actual combat system is pretty similar to Total War. Perhaps not with quite the exact same depth that you would see in the Total War games, but definitely still, with a lot of, flair. So currently right now, just kind of building up our economic base. Now the reason why I haven't put my workers on the farm yet is that you do actually have to wait for the farm to be finished growing before you can actually start harvesting food from it, which can make it take a little while longer. So right now we're kind of just rushing out some barracks. The AI has a habit of really rushing out a fast troop force to deal with you early on, so kind of want to be prepared for that. Now our next goal is going to be probably money, because we're going to, or gold rather, because we're going to need those funds to help supply us with troops in the early game here. Now, I've found that the AI kind of rush primarily pikemen early game, with very little focus on actual more ground forces, or with more any kind of ranged forces. So what we're gonna hopefully be able to do here is just defend against them with our kind of slightly smaller, but perhaps not necessarily quite as small pikeman force, which is our melee units, and then use our musketeers, which seem to be pretty strong for the British race, which is the race that I'm playing currently. There's actually a whole variety of races available to play. It's actually pretty insane. There's something on the way of like 10 different races coming off the bat. That's not very common in modern RTS games. Usually there's only one or two factions, with the focus primarily being placed on just balancing those few factions. However, in this case, it seems that they really put a focus on balance, having both balance and a wide variety of factions for players to play. Now, it does seem that a lot of the factions do play very similarly, which maybe can be contributed to why it's so easy for them to have so many races. But honestly, I don't mind that too much. It's not a huge deal to me. So I'm just kind of, trying to set up a little bit of a standing army here. Now, what I want to do is I want to get some drummers and officers, because those will allow us to actually establish formations and stuff, which is why it's so similar to, the Total War games. We're going to be really pushing a lot of our new fresh workers out of spawn to go work on that. And primarily the reason why you have to be so worried about these early game pushes is that, not only are they killing your workers, but they can also take your workers for their own, which is kind of a pain in the ass if you ask me. So we've kind of set up a pretty good set here. We're going to need to start looking at getting some iron mines, so that's going to be this mine here. As our forces are going to require iron to maintain, as well as coal to use ranged units, but thankfully we've already got one of those set up. And generally just the goal is going to be just to keep expanding, keep taking resources, continue building new buildings and structures. Okay, so we've got this guy up and running. Now we want to get... I think we're going to move them into wood production so we can continue to build buildings. Now we need to... We're going to cancel all of these and build 2 drummers. And two of these guys. So that way we can take over these forces. Except for we're slightly... However, you do need to have 36 before you can actually maintain a full regiment. So currently I need more ranged units before we can really form a true regiment of ranged units. We should have enough for our first battalion here. We're going to move them into a more defensive position. We've got about 20 here now. Okay, so now we've also got a pretty nice stack of workers here. I think we're going to set up a second farm. Probably... well, we need to find an open space, so probably about there is probably going to be our best bet for that. Where's our lovely officer? Not quite enough just yet. Still at 25. Okay. Now we just want to... We're going to put points into armor for our pikemen and armor into our other boys. Okay, so now we want to get... We're going to develop medical science, which should assist us with our production, holding out against the enemy more effectively. Now the other thing I'd like to do is it does look like, you know, our primary way they're going to attack here is probably going to be through this line of defense here. So I'm thinking I want to set up a tower just to assist with the defense. Let's also set up a diplomatic center. See what kind of upgrades we can get through that. And we'll also keep working on developing our economics here while we're at it. Okay. I think we should have enough here to form our second regiment. Nice. Okay, so with that, we're going to move these guys out. Hopefully... Now, usually the enemy is kitty corner, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to kind of just meet them out in the field before they get towards us. That way we have a higher chance of seeing them here. Now we're going to call all of our spare workers here. I think we're going to get them farming. We're going to move our point here so that we're no longer building into that. I'm also going to take a section of these guys here, and we're going to switch them over to building stables for the current moment. Okay, oops, 9. We do not want that. Okay, so now we need 3, we need 4. Hold on. Swap back here. Okay. Now, the secondary hope is that we'll be able to, if we can hit them early enough, we might be able to actually take a stronger, you know, initiative and possibly, you know, knock them out really early, which would be nice. Not because I want this to end, you know, not be able to show stuff off. Oh shit, okay. So yeah, we've just gotten sight on the enemy here. So we need to set up our defensive position here. Yeah, okay. So it does look like the enemy is going to try and move around us, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. Okay, so we're short on gold still here. I'd like to go and see if I can perhaps go and see about capturing some more gold. Okay, hold on. We need to move our forces around here. Okay. Yeah, see. The AI is actually pretty good at detecting what kind of battles it can win and which ones it can lose. It'll lose coming in, so it usually won't actually take a fight that it thinks it can lose, which is a little bit awkward, or can be a little bit awkward for us. Now, I'm debating whether we can... I want to see if maybe we can force them into an engagement where they're fighting my pikemen on the low ground, and then have the other guys fighting from the high ground. That would be nice. We're just going to establish some more mines out here. And then I'm thinking we also want to perhaps send some more troops to go work on food. Okay, let's see. How are things looking here? Okay. Okay, so we're going to be fighting here. Okay. Okay, I want to retreat here. I've gotten their attention, but I want to be in a good position to actually fight here. Now, hopefully, by using our voice here, we can defeat this wave, and then we will head back. We're going to keep going down towards their capital. All the while, we're going to need to continue our production here. Thinking we're going to work on some these boys for the current moment, and then also focus on those guys. Some lovely cavalry to help fight. I'm going to establish some more of these mines here. Okay. Actually, it looks like if that guy is there, I'm thinking that guy's heading back towards their base, which means they're actually up in that top corner. Okay. Hopefully. Unless this guy's playing me, which he might. Hopefully not. Because I'm hoping if we can take these guys, you know, somewhat by surprise, then we might be able to win another engagement against them. I'd like to get about another 2 of each of those. Now, I haven't actually spotted their territory yet, but I know... There. Okay, we've got another army. Looks like. Okay, so we're going to establish our positions here. We need to move these guys around. Does look like it's a pretty sizable army. Thinking I want to start moving my reinforcements in. Okay, now we want to... Okay. We need to hold the line here. Okay. I think we need to retreat here. It's going to be our best bet. We're going to retreat along these lines. Okay. We're going to form up here again. Okay. Now we're going to turn and fight. Oh shit. Okay, so they're just ignoring my pikemen. Going right for the infantry. Okay, nice. Not exactly the best strategy for them, as it were. Okay, and with that we can push back towards them. This is a very tight fight, as it were, actually. It's very interesting how the AI engages in fights. It's definitely a little bit of an odd strategy, if you ask me. But we're just going to keep expanding our forces. Preparations here. Now this game does have like a lot of micro, especially when it comes to how units are set up. Now, I want to get this guy on 4 now. So we've got this guy on 3, 4, and then I want to get this guy on 5. Because it is very important about how you approach each engagement. Because if you're not careful, you can very easily just get yourself killed. So we have to be very careful. Meanwhile, I want to continue our production here. Oh, that was a house that I built, not an actual supply shack. That would explain a lot as to why things are acting a little bit wonky down here. Now, we've upgraded the number of horsemen buildings that we have, which will be very good for us. Okay, let's get all of our 48 spare workers here. Okay. Looks like we're facing another group here. Hopefully, our riflemen will be enough to deal with that. Okay, so we've already actually pushed pretty far into their territory. Big goal here being to, just really push into their territory. We need to focus our fire. Okay. Oh, nice. It would appear that... Oh, okay. We're okay. A little bit afraid there. Looked like we were going to have a crash, but looks like we're okay. But a little bit worrisome. There is still, I suspect we will see a day 1 patch with this, just because, there's a lot of, not necessarily like game-breaking issues, but just a lot of little things that are kind of making things a little bit awkward. I'm not too worried about it. I suspect, it'll get fixed up real nice for final version. Okay. So we really need to get our armies set here. Okay. This is kind of the constant struggle, is just, trying to form ranks and maintain our progress. Now, we are somewhat starting to lose some units here, which I'm somewhat worried. I am kind of worried about, as I'd prefer that didn't happen. Okay, so we don't quite have enough here yet to form a second squad. Now, I'm not too happy because we're losing quite a bit on this march back, and I think we need to send out our cavalry and our initial wave here just to slow down the enemy and allow our musketeers to turn and fire. Yeah. Okay, now we can turn and fire. The large army management, when you actually start to get into larger and larger armies, does become kind of painful. There's just, between managing your economy and also managing, huge amounts of army, it can get pretty awkward at times, unfortunately. And we actually end up, we keep ending up with this sort of situation where we're just fighting, a really tight battle all the time with a lot of, just excess. Now, I am thinking that I want to keep expanding south. I see we've got another mine here that we could take. Now, part of the struggle is that we don't want to rush ahead of our units too much. I definitely can see why you might want, like, if you're playing this, just kind of casually, you know, why you might want to play this on a slower speed, because it would be a little bit easier to manage combat, you know, when you're not playing at, you know, very fast speeds. But, you know, just being, you know, a StarCraft 2 veteran, God, no, I can't say that. I'm not really a StarCraft 2 veteran. But just, you know, having played StarCraft 2 a lot, you know, it's too awkward for me. I think we need to regroup here a little bit, let our troops form up in preparation. Now, I think we want to stop these for a little bit, maybe build about 5 of those each. How are we doing overall? Food, we're doing pretty good. I'd like to keep sending explorers south to keep looking for new resources. We can also expand our current mines to help. Now, I am seeing that we have another group here. Now, unfortunately, we don't really have too great of a army grouping here, but we'll send these guys up this way, just in preparation. We can hold the line here for quite a while if we have to. Now, let's see. Let's get some of these boys. Okay. That is one of the advantages, is as you get larger armies, you can just group them more easily. Now, we are going to keep upgrading our stats on these guys, as well as on these guys. It's very important to keep that in mind. As well as we'll keep healing. Okay. It does appear that we are going to be seeing another movement here. We're going to move these guys into position and prepare them to fire. We're going to run in our cavalry along the flank just to assist, though I don't think we'll have too much trouble there. We've got the rest of our cavalry as well as our new reinforcements moving in. I'm thinking we're gonna have one set of we're gonna build another set of mine of these guys, though I think we need to continue expanding our mines for the current moment. Just as we attempt to keep upgrading that. Now, we are thankfully putting on a lot of pressure on him here, especially if I can, you know, I'm seeing that he doesn't really have too big of an army here. So I'm thinking what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and push in and start putting pressure on his actual, like, you know, forces to the north here, if we can. Yeah. So because we've got our cavalry sacking his farms here, which are really good for us. And we can just, you know, kind of move them around as we need. He's got a lot of barracks kind of just scattered all over the place, and his army really isn't organized yet, which puts us at a pretty huge advantage. Which is very good. Oh, this is actually a town center. Interesting. Okay. Interesting, interesting. Now, it does appear that, you know, as you get more production buildings, it does look like it actually ends up costing you more and more resources each time. But honestly, at this point, I kind of think we have the match, to be honest. We've just pushed so far into his base at this point. Now, I'm going to... Yeah, see, as you can see here, we can actually take his units and just tell them to go back to my base. And look at that, we have achieved our victory. Well, thank you guys very much for watching. We're going to keep trying to do, you know, more and more of this. Keep covering this game. It's a lot of fun, and, you know, there's a lot of interest in it in our community, so I suspect we'll be playing a lot of it in the next little while. And I think, you know, it seems like it's going to be a really good game. You know, there's a little bit of work that still needs to be done on the back end. Just, you know, straightening out a little bit of the server issues. But, you know, the game isn't out yet, and I'm sure, you know, on the release version will fix all of the issues that we saw. You know, we've been seeing, you know, I think a lot of it's just, you know, this, The devs are still fine-tuning some of the servers and stuff. So, for example, we couldn't play multiplayer tonight just because the devs had shut down the servers to do some maintenance. And that's just in preparation of release tomorrow, which is going to be like, 8 or 9 hours from now. So they're kind of, they're in crunch time, and, that's totally respectable. They're still, like, we're still getting a couple of errors and stuff. It seems like they're not actually breaking the game right now. It's, they just pop up with an error message, and then you can just click out of them, and the game is still okay. Not entirely sure what's up with that. I'm sure that's probably going to get fixed in the release version. But overall, pretty stable, pretty fun. Like, we haven't seen, like, any actual, like, game closing crashes, which is nice. It's just, sometimes, the game will be a bit wonky and, pump out some crash messages for some reason, but we're not quite sure why. Well, anyways, thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed, seeing this kind of coverage from me, feel free to leave a like and possibly subscribe, because, as you guys keep doing, keep liking and keep subscribing and the channel keeps growing, I'm going to be able to, get in on more and more of this stuff and be able to cover more and more of these new games. So thank you guys very much for watching.